Okay, so we want to install free Pascal Compiler, FPC, and the Lazarus IDE as a free and open source alternative to Delphi so that we can write modern Object Pascal for command line apps or for graphical apps. Now, we have the free Pascal website, we have the Lazarus IDE website, but in my case, I'm on Linux at the moment. I typically don't have multiple installations, multiple different versions of Lazarus and free Pascal Compiler, but if you did want to, regardless, this is a great app for that. It's an installer, FPC Up Deluxe. It's an alternative to using the default installer, which is, in this case, the latest stable version. So one thing to note with FPC Up Deluxe, you'll want to notice that no prereqs on Windows, but on Linux, you do need these tools so that it compiles properly, because it is going to download the source code for FPC and Lazarus and then compile it. Now, I'm on Linux Mint, which is part of the Debian Ubuntu family, so I can just run this command, perhaps after a sudo apt update first to grab the latest packages, so then install this. And then I will grab the latest release of FPC Up Deluxe. Okay, in my case, I am on a 64-bit AMD 64 system, and so I will grab this binary, FPC Up Deluxe x86 64 Linux. And I put that in its own folder because when you run it for the first time, and by the way, you either on the command line chmod +x to make it executable, or do it under permissions here in your graphical interface, run that. It's going to generate all of these, right? So these are configuration files. And the first thing you're going to want to do is instruct FPC Up Deluxe where you'd like to install FPC. In my case, I'm the only user on the system, but I like to install it on in my home folder at FPC, right? Just a folder FPC. By default, this should be set to stable and stable, so it's just the latest stable release. I do put it on fixes so that it installs the latest patches for the most recent version. There are older versions here that you can see and install different combinations of the compiler and Lazarus itself. Some people swear by the trunk, meaning the latest development, commit, as far as I know. I'm not risky like that. I just like my thing to work, right? My software tool chain to work. So I'll go with fixes. And at that point, I could just hit install/update FPC and Lazarus, and it'll go ahead and compile it. It'll take a few minutes, right, depending on your machine, but it will compile it. That being said, there are some configuration options here you can take a look at. A few other things I want to mention, worthy of mention, under modules. If you'd like, after your installation is over, you can go ahead and install any individual libraries you want. Like one thing, for example, that I really like to do is install the Vampire Imaging library. It's very useful for me and the things I build. The Online Package Manager, the OPM, does not come installed when you compile and set up Lazarus this way. And so I click here and install that after the fact, right? And I also click on doc so that I get a docked form editor, right? So it's not a multi-window. And I do also build for Windows sometimes. So under cross compilers, I'll choose x86 64 Windows, and I'll install that cross compiler. So it's very useful. And I do want to mention a couple other things. When you first run Lazarus, when you first run Lazarus, a pop-up will appear asking, do you want the classic multi-window option, right, the layout, or do you want this single window? So I choose single window and docked form editor, so I can have the form editor right here, right? It's much more useful for me. And it's a personal preference, really. The color theme by default will not actually be what you're looking at here. It'll just be this default one, which, since I am in a dark mode on Linux, this is a little jarring. And so what I like to do is I want to add some custom themes here, and so I'll click on export, and that'll just let me know, hey, in your install folder, there's a config Lazarus/user schemes window, folder rather. And in that folder, I download user supplied themes from the wiki page under Free Pascal. You can search for this, and there's quite a bit. I believe Monica is on here, and the one I like to use is VS Code Dark. Okay, so let me go ahead and revert to that. Under display here, under the editor section, you can edit your font, because the default one is a little boring and it's kind of tiny for my taste. So I like to be able to view what I'm writing. The component palette by default is actually enabled up here, which is fine, but since I can view components here on the right side, I don't actually need this. I find it superfluous. So I come to component palette in the options window and disable that. All right, I think that's about it. A couple other things I like to do. This dark red here is not so great for me. So this is the object inspector. So for the values, I like to brighten them up a little bit. Perhaps not. Actually, a red's not bad. I'll just go with a red. Same with the references. So if I apply that, that looks better. But you can go with any color you want there. Oh, another thing, this is again personal taste. I do not like the caret to move, or the cursor to move past the end of the line, so I just do that. Okay. All right, and as you can see, the package manager is working fine. I believe I did install, when I was installing this, I did install Vampire via the FPC UpToLux app. So don't be surprised if you install a module with FPC UpToLux that the installed version is actually newer than the one in the OPM. That happens sometimes. Okay, and that's it. That's how you get FPC and Lazarus installed using FPC UpToLux on Linux, and as I said, it should be similar to on other systems. Now, as far as actually learning Object Pascal, the language, and getting better at it, I like to use a few resources personally, because I don't have a textbook or any book on Pascal as of yet. The person who writes and maintains the Castle game engine, a 3D game engine and 2D game engine made in Pascal, they wrote a tutorial or an introduction for programmers, a modern Object Pascal introduction. Now, as far as I can tell, this does presume you've programmed in at least one other language before, but it's very useful because I can see very quickly here different sections, how to use object orientation in Pascal, what the various units are, as in, what you might call a header file, let's say, and some basics of the language, control flow, iteration, how to handle errors and exceptions, some containers, generics, built-in options in the library, and some other widgets here and there. So it's very useful here, right? A lot of examples, syntax highlighted as to boot. Another useful resource is this cookbook by Eichel. So Eichel is actually a gentleman from the Discord, the Free Pascal, unofficial Free Pascal Discord community. Very great community, actually, very helpful. I get a lot of help from people here. Here's a link to it. You can pause the video and write that down. Very useful. They also list the related community, the Delphi community, which can also be helpful. It has more members. It can be helpful if you just have questions in general about Object Pascal. Many things will translate over between Free Pascal and the Delphi dialect. Eichel's cookbook has a few things here. It's got some basics. You can look at data types, routines, loops. There's some core tasks, right? I don't know, how do I handle strings? What can I do with them? Print them, handle Unicode, some file handling, compression, some advanced topics here, multi-threading. Very useful. And he's released very useful some libraries for multi-threading and such. And the largest resource by far is this 300 plus page book called Free Pascal from Square One. You can Google it. It's free to read online. It was revised as of June 2024, so you could look out for updates to that every once in a while. It has some philosophical discussion in the first part of the book, how to install the language in the second part. But if you just want to learn how to use the language, you can just jump to the third part here and start using it. A lot of examples and discussion around built-in standard functions. So yeah, very useful stuff. Again, if I forget something, I'll most often refer back to the Castle Engine author's short tutorial here. And if you just Google built-in functions for Pascal, you'll usually be redirected to the Free Pascal or Lazarus wiki pages. And those wiki pages are also very useful. Or you might be redirected to the actual online documentation, which can be a little outdated, but it's usually good enough to make the guesswork go away.